There comes a point in almost every man's life when things just stop making sense. The applause fades. Chasing women feels empty. Success, it doesn't satisfy. It tastes like dust. And in that strange silence, something old, something buried, begins to stir beneath all the trophies and titles. A sadness with no face, a kind of yearning that no logic can explain. That's usually when a man meets a ghost, not of some girl from his past, but something much deeper. He meets the ghost of his first love. Not a woman, not a romance, but the mother, the one living quietly in the shadows of his unconscious. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, warned us about this moment. He called it the mother complex, an invisible psychological blueprint passed down through generations. It's so deep, so ingrained, that until you bring it into your awareness, it controls your life. Quietly, completely. And here's the thing, this isn't about blaming your actual mother. It's not about assigning fault. This is about understanding that the most powerful prisons aren't physical. They're emotional. They're built from silent expectations, old archetypes, and the deeply held belief that in order to be loved, you have to earn it. That you have to become something, someone she never actually asked for, but you thought she needed. From your very first breath, she was the world. Her smile, approval, her silence, punishment. She was your first mirror. And what you saw in her eyes you believed. That became the truth of your worth. But here's the lesson Jung gave us that most of us missed. The archetype of the mother is not the person, it's a symbol. A universal blueprint wired into the collective unconscious of all humanity. It represents origin, nourishment, safety, but also the danger of being swallowed whole, psychological dependence, emotional regression. And that's the root of the fracture. Because no real woman, no matter how loving or present, can fully match that archetype. It's too big, too mythic. And when your actual mother doesn't meet those impossible standards, the child doesn't grieve. He adapts. He molds himself. He creates a version of himself designed to win her gaze, earn her love, survive her absence. That version becomes the mask, and over time, the mask becomes the man. But underneath all that, still lives a little boy, aching, performing, chasing. Not chasing women for love, but for something else, something much more primal. He's chasing repair. He's chasing her, not the actual woman, but the mother that still lives inside the wound. Jung said, "What is not made conscious will be lived as fate." And so, the pattern begins. You fall for women who mirror her coldness, her absence, her emotional distance. You collapse right before success. You shrink when faced with female disapproval, not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep down, there's still a part of you that believes her gaze, her approval, determines whether you're even allowed to exist. Here's the uncomfortable truth most men will spend their entire lives avoiding. You can't become whole until you kill the illusion. You can't become your own man until you step out of the psychic orbit of your mother. Now, Jung didn't mean kill in the violent sense. He meant differentiate. He meant see her clearly, not as a goddess, not as a villain, but as a human being, someone wounded, someone shaped by her own invisible shadow. Until you do that, you're not loving her. You're either worshiping an idea, or you're fighting a myth, and both of those are illusions. Both will keep you broken. So ask yourself something hard. Are you really choosing your life? Or are you still trying to prove your worth to a mother who stopped watching years ago? This isn't self-help. This is soul surgery. Because every time you overreact to guilt, every time rejection paralyzes you, every time you bend over backwards in a relationship just to feel safe, you're not acting as a man, You're echoing a wounded child who still hopes that if he's good enough, she'll finally choose him. But real healing, it doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. It comes from releasing that sacred but unrealistic expectation. The belief that the mother who gave you life is also the one who can give you an identity. She can't. That's your job now. A man who hasn't made peace with the mother within. He doesn't date. He reenacts. He doesn't lead. He compensates. He doesn't love. He begs, in disguise, for redemption. Because what haunts him isn't a person, it's a projection. Jung taught that the unconscious doesn't keep its secrets forever. It projects them. It casts them onto the world outside. And for a man who hasn't faced this mother wound, nothing is more magnetic, more powerful than the image of the feminine. He doesn't seek a partner. He seeks a mirror. He's not falling in love. He's falling into a reenactment. He's trying to complete a story that never ended. And that, right there, is the illusion. He calls it chemistry. But it's repetition. He says, "She completes me." But it's not completion. It's regression. It's the boy reaching for emotional milk he never received. Jung called this projection. When a man's inner feminine, his anima, shaped largely by the mother, is projected onto the women he meets, he doesn't see them. He sees her, the hope, the hunger, the unresolved pain. And it ruins him. Because no woman can carry the burden of that unspoken expectation. She becomes overwhelmed by needs he can't articulate. Save me. Soothe me. Forgive me. Complete me. But without him ever having to ask, because the boy doesn't ask. The boy just waits. And when she can't give what even his mother never gave, he feels abandoned all over again. Not by her, but by the wound she accidentally reopened. This is the loop Jung warned us about. This is the tragic cycle of the man who has not withdrawn his projections. He turns every relationship into a kind of sacrifice, bleeding out his soul to recover something that was never his to begin with. He's not looking for love. He's looking for the perfect mother that never was. So the question becomes, how long will you let that past dictate your future? How long will you mistake love for salvation? Because as long as the mother archetype remains idealized or demonized in your mind, you're not seeing clearly. You're not seeing her. And more importantly, you're not seeing yourself. Until that changes, you will mistake intimacy for need. You will confuse sex with healing. You will interpret silence as rejection. You will believe abandonment is your destiny. But here's the truth Jung left us. Something hard, something holy. The feminine is not meant to be repeated. She must be reclaimed. And to do that, the man has to descend into himself, into the depths, into the pain. Not to punish his mother, but to retrieve his own soul. That descent Jung talked about, that's called individuation. It's not about perfection. It's about integration. Taking the unconscious patterns that have ruled your life and finally making them conscious. Choosing instead of reacting, becoming whole instead of chasing pieces. So what does that look like for you? It means this: until you face the wound, you'll keep asking the world to mother you. But the world won't. The world will break you until you learn how to protect yourself. Until you learn how to father yourself. Until you pull back that ancient loyalty to pain that never served you. And let me be honest, it's not poetic. It's not noble. It's disorienting. Because the moment you stop seeking your mother in women, you will feel alone. Not because you are, but because for the first time in your life, you're standing in the silence she used to fill. And it's in that silence that the real man begins to take shape. You think you're stuck because you're lazy. You think you're not successful because you lack discipline. But what if the truth is darker? What if you're not failing? You're being loyal. Jung understood something that most people still don't. The unconscious doesn't operate by logic, it operates by myth. And one of the oldest myths it clings to sounds like this. If I grow beyond the suffering of the people who raised me, I betray them. It's the unspoken pact between child and parent. It's not written down, but it's lived every single day. It whispers things like, if my mother struggled, who am I to thrive? If she lived unloved, how dare I feel chosen? If she carried pain her whole life, what right do I have to feel free? It's not logical. It's not conscious. It's emotional gravity, pulling you back to the psychic atmosphere of your childhood. To that room you outgrew physically, but never left psychologically. So what happens? You dim your light just before success. You ruin good relationships before they feel safe. You sabotage joy, intimacy, power. Not because you want to, but because some part of you still believes, if I heal, I leave her behind. Jung called this kind of unconscious loyalty archetypal possession, when an archetype doesn't just influence your life, it inhabits it. When your mother's pain becomes your identity, when her sadness becomes your compass, when you carry her suffering like a sacred object, too afraid to set it down, because if you do, you don't know who you'll be without it. You become her echo, her shadow, her second chance, not because you meant to, but because you loved her. And here's the paradox that breaks most men. You cannot honor your mother by suffering alongside her. You can only honor her by evolving beyond her. This is not betrayal. This is liberation. Because the role of a son isn't to orbit his mother's grief. It's to step out of it, to carry forward what was unlived, to become the branch that breaks the cycle without cutting off the roots. That is real maturity. That is the birth of the adult self, not as a reaction to pain, but as a conscious act of becoming. So if you keep playing small, if you shrink around joy or love or power, if you sabotage every time something starts to feel good, ask yourself the question most men run from. Who am I betraying by being happy? And when the answer comes, and it will come, you'll know exactly where your wound still lives. But don't stop there, because here's your truth, and I need you to carve it into your heart. Her pain is not your destiny. Yes, she gave you life, but what you do with that life, that's your offering back to her. You are not here to repeat her story. You are here to complete it. Not by carrying her suffering, but by transcending it. So that one day, when you look into your own reflection, you don't see her sadness anymore. You see your own sovereignty. Now let me speak to something deeper, something quieter. There's a kind of loneliness no one talks about. The loneliness inside a man who has abandoned himself. He performs. He smiles when expected. He's charming, dependable, successful. But beneath all that, there's a child curled up in the corner of his psyche. Unseen, unheard, still waiting for the warmth that never came. Jung said, what remains unconscious doesn't disappear. It lives on as fate. And the cruel fate of the unhealed man is this. He becomes the very presence he once needed, but never received. Not toward others, toward himself. He tells himself to toughen up when he really needs compassion. He powers through exhaustion when his body is begging for rest. He mocks his own pain. He laughs off his sadness. He punishes himself for emotions he would comfort in anyone else. He becomes his own silent judge, his own absent nurturer, his own authoritarian figure. This is the final frontier of the mother complex. It's not just about what she did. It's about how you now treat yourself in the same voice. It's about how her disapproval still echoes, but now it echoes in your tone. Jung called this the inner mother, an archetype that, when wounded, takes the throne of your mind and governs your worth, your choices, your relationships, your sense of safety in the world. And most men, they run from this. They perform, they achieve, they distract themselves with noise, work, women, money, whatever keeps the silence away. But no matter where they go, the question follows, why do I feel empty, even when I do everything right? And the answer? Because you left yourself. You left your joy, your softness, your intuition behind. Because the love model you inherited taught you that your needs were too much, that your sadness was inconvenient, that your vulnerability was weakness. And so you adapted. You became who you had to be to feel safe. But Jung would say this, and it's the truth men must learn to hold with trembling hands. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not who she needed you to be, not who you thought you had to become to survive, but who you were before the adaptation. And to return to that man, you don't need more strength. You need more compassion, not pity, not indulgence. Compassion, the courage to sit with your pain, to not fix it, not analyze it, not justify it, but to hold it. That's what self-fathering looks like. That's what repair really means. That's what it means to become the internal guide you never had. And listen, it's not a soft path. It's brutal. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, you don't feel immediate peace. You feel grief. The grief you've been avoiding your entire life. But in that grief is your redemption. Because when you finally whisper to that little boy inside you, I see you, I'm not leaving you again. Something changes. Something shifts at the core. You're no longer the echo of your childhood. You're no longer begging for love to find you. You're no longer chasing ghosts. You're finally coming home. Not to her, to you. You've spent your whole life trying not to become your father. But quietly, silently, you became a prisoner to your mother. Not by choice, by inheritance. And the real tragedy, it's not that she failed you. It's that you kept her voice alive long after she left the room. You internalized it. You carried it. You turned it into your compass. Jung understood something most modern men still miss. The goal of growth isn't rebellion. It's not about waging war on your parents. It's separation with love. It's saying, I see you. I understand where you were coming from. But now, I must walk my own path. That's not abandonment. That's maturity. That's what it means to differentiate. To become your own person without needing to demonize the people who raised you. Because the truth is, you can love someone and still refuse to live inside their story. You can honor your mother's sacrifices without turning her sorrow into your identity. You can carry the wisdom she gave you without carrying the wound. But none of that happens until you finally ask the question, who am I without her pain? And if your chest tightens when you hear that, it's because you're close. Close to the core. Close to the place where the boy inside you learned that love equals suffering. That if he dared to be happy, he would lose the very person he needed most. So he made a deal with himself. If I stay small, maybe she'll stay close. But you're not that boy anymore. You're a man now. And your job isn't to stay small. It's to grow. It's to evolve. It's to lead. And leadership doesn't start on the outside. It starts within. It starts by confronting the inherited myths that shaped your worth, your identity, your capacity to love. Because here's the hardest truth of all. The mother you're chasing doesn't exist anymore. She's not real. She's a memory, a symbol, a projection. And your job now is not to resurrect her, it's to release her. Let her be human. Let her be flawed. Let her be free. Because when you do that, when you stop needing her to be the idealized version you never had, You stop asking every woman to carry her weight. You stop projecting. You start seeing. And when you see clearly, you begin to choose. You choose partners, not patterns. You choose connection, not compensation. You choose love, not as a rescue mission, but as a mutual journey. That's the shift. That's what Jung meant when he said, the work of the soul is to integrate, not perfect. To become conscious of the unconscious. To meet the shadow with light. To meet the wound with wisdom. And this path, it's not about becoming a better man. It's about becoming a real one. The kind of man who no longer abandons himself just to feel loved. The kind of man who can hold space for his pain without letting it run the show. The kind of man who can finally say, I do not need to be chosen to be whole. Because he's already chosen himself. And that changes everything. It changes how you show up. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how you speak to yourself when no one else is around. Most importantly, it changes what you pass on. Because every man carries forward a legacy. And if you don't make your wound conscious, your children will carry it for you. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. So let it end here. Let the cycle break with you. You are not here to be a second chance for someone else's unfinished healing. You are here to live your life, fully, freely, fiercely. And when the guilt rises, because it will, just remember, guilt is often just grief with armor. It's the ache of letting go, the tremble of growth. It's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're stepping out of a role that never fit you. And yes, it'll feel unfamiliar. Yes, it'll feel lonely at times. But in that unfamiliar space, you'll meet yourself. Not the version shaped by trauma, not the persona you wore to survive, but the man you were always meant to be. And that man, he doesn't seek salvation through others. He doesn't mistake performance for worth. He doesn't need permission to shine. Because he knows, deep in his bones, that his value is not up for negotiation. He knows he was never too much. He knows his needs were never a burden. He knows his vulnerability is not weakness, it's truth. And in that knowing, he becomes dangerous. Not in a destructive way, but in the way fire is dangerous to darkness. He becomes a man on fire with self-awareness, with sovereignty, with purpose. He becomes the kind of man this world desperately needs. So if you're listening to this and it stirs something in you, if you feel that ache in your chest, that pull in your gut, it's because you're ready. Ready to stop reenacting. Ready to stop chasing ghosts. Ready to stop living as an echo of a pain that didn't start with you, but can end with you. You don't need another achievement. You don't need more discipline. You need permission, not from her, not from the world, from you. You have the right to step out of her sorrow. You have the right to stop performing. You have the right to live a life that's yours. Because love, real love, doesn't require you to bleed to be worthy. It simply asks you to show up, whole, present, unmasked. So, brother, take this in. You are not broken. You are becoming. And every moment you choose yourself. Every time you tend to that inner child. Every time you let go of who you thought you had to be. You step closer to the man you truly are. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And that is enough. That has always been enough. You've spent your whole life searching for home. But the truth is, home was never a place. Home was never her approval. Home was never their applause. Home is you. So come home, to your body, to your truth, to your worth. Come home to the man who's waited patiently beneath the mask. Because now is the time. Now is the beginning. Now is yours.